just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah. I'm grateful, oh yeah.
What is going on, guys, and welcome to the Disrupt the Industry podcast. I'm your host, Dre Canavati, and today we are on episode 4 of our series, Starting from Scratch. And this is basically a series where you want to get into the gym, but you absolutely have no idea what's going on, but you want to educate yourself and you want to have the most optimal training, nutrition, diet, whatever you want to call it, possible going in everything. So that's what we're doing here, guys. We're trying to take complicated topics and break them down for normal people. So today, what we're going to be going over are the 3 different types of hypertrophy and the 3 different mechanisms of hypertrophy, okay? So when it comes to the 3 different types of hypertrophy, I'm not going to deep dive too into them because each type of hypertrophy can literally be a video all on its own. I'm just basically going to give you what's going to be the 3 types of hypertrophy, right? You're going to understand once you hear the 3 types of hypertrophy why I'm not going to deep dive into each different type. So let's get into it. So the first type of hypertrophy is going to be muscle hyperplasia, okay? Now this one's very interesting because there's a very limited number of research, or there is a very limited number of research showing that muscle hyperplasia has a huge effect on hypertrophy. So you need to take this one with a grain of salt. However, it is worth mentioning. And what muscle hyperplasia is, in the simplest terms, is going to be an increase in the number of muscle fibers within a cell. I'm not going to go in depth. I'm just going to define it. The second type of hypertrophy is going to be myofibrillar. I think it's pronounced like that. Myofibrillar synthesis or myofibrillar hypertrophy. I don't know if it's myofibrillar or myofibrillar. It's spelled fibrillar, like B-R-I-L-L-A-R. So that's, I'm not even going to say it again. But what this is going to be the changes in skeletal muscle mass after a heavy weightlifting session. Easy peasy. The third and final type of hypertrophy, guys, is sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. And I'm sure if your dads were around in like the 1980s, they heard in the gym, oh, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is why bodybuilders are bigger than everybody else who lifts weights, like powerlifters. And essentially, there is a little bit of truth to that. Research does show. But what sarcoplasmic hypertrophy can be defined as is the growth in the sarcoplasm, which overtakes the growth in the myofibrillus. Okay, I'm pretty sure I got that right. And what the myofibrillus is, guys, are the contracted threads found in what's going to be striated muscle cells. Now, truth be told, guys, I just wanted to give you the 3 different types of hypertrophy. As a coach, it's great to know them, but it's really not going to make a difference within your programming and whatnot. So again, I did want to define them for you, but it's not going to be something that you're actively using when programming for a client or programming for yourself. It's not going to be something along the lines of, oh, like, I'm doing this many sets and this many reps because it's inducing sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Like, that's not really, the whole point here. But what we're going to dive into now, the 3 mechanisms of hypertrophy, that actually does matter here. So there are 3 mechanisms of hypertrophy: mechanical tension, muscle damage, and metabolic stress, or it can be also referred to as metabolic fatigue. Now, let's deep dive in because I'm going to say this in the simplest terms possible so that you guys can understand. So let's go ahead and talk about all 3. So let's talk about mechanical tension. And mechanical tension is basically getting stronger, right? Putting the muscle under more tension with a heavier load. So if you're benching 225, you're going to have the muscle under a heavier tension than if you're benching 135. And how you're going to achieve mechanical tension within training is going to be if you do 135 pounds for 5 reps week 1, week 2 you do 135 pounds for 6 reps, week 3 you do 135 pounds for 7 reps, week 4 you do 135 pounds for 8 reps, and then once you get 8 reps, you're going to bump that weight up to 140, and then you're going to do 140 pounds for 5 reps, and then 140 pounds for 6 reps the next week. And see, that is what mechanical tension is. It's the increase of tension on the muscle through repetition, but primarily, the research shows primarily through the weight on the barbell, dumbbell, machine, cable, etc. That is mechanical tension, getting stronger, and that is going to be the main driver in hypertrophy. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is going to be well, if I want to get as big as possible, then I should just 1 rep max every single workout because that's how I'm going to achieve the highest number of mechanical tension. False. What that's going to do is it's going to build up a lot of fatigue. You're going to get injured, God forbid, or it's going to open the door to injury, God forbid. And again, you're not going to be inducing the other 2 mechanisms of hypertrophy. From there, we're going to talk about the second mechanism of hypertrophy. Now, there are arguments that there is only one mechanism of hypertrophy, which is mechanical tension. However, I'm going to include metabolic stress and muscle damage. And metabolic stress, guys, in the simplest terms, is that pump, right? It's that blood flow, volumized, pumpy feeling when you do a high repetition set, right? And that's why you hear a lot of bro science, people saying, oh, if you want to bodybuild, you have to lift in the 12 to 15 rep range because that's going to give you the best pump, right? And the pump is how you grow. The pump's not how you grow, okay? Progressive overload and mechanical tension is going to be how you grow. However, when it comes to inducing hypertrophy with muscle growth, that pump, that blood flow, that optimization of just feeling that muscle press against the skin, that is metabolic stress, and that can aid within the growth of muscles, and it can induce hypertrophy within your muscles, and it is, in a lot of studies, an important mechanism of hypertrophy. That is metabolic stress in the simplest terms, that pump, that blood flow, that skin splitting feeling when you do a high repetition set. And I always say, guys, never go in the gym and just chase a pump. You're going to get the best pump in the world if you hit a PR. If you come in 1 week and you bench 225 for 5 and then like hitting failure on that 5th rep, and then the next week you come in and you bench 225 for 6 or 7, I bet you a lot of money that you're going to get the most skin-splitting pump in your chest, assuming your execution's on point, and your negatives controlled, and you're executing the movement with proper form. I promise you, when you hit PRs, that's when you're going to get the most skin-splitting, blood-flowing pumps. A huge mistake I see in the gym is when people go into the gym and they just grab 10s or 15s and they just start trying to curl weight, and they're like, oh, I'm just chasing the pump, bro. I'm just chasing the pump. That's not even going to give you a good pump. It might shuttle a little bit of blood into the muscle, but A, it's not going to induce growth because you're not hitting mechanical tension or progressive overload. And B, it's not going to be an intense pump, right? It's going to be a soft half ASS pump because, again, you're not pushing your body to that failure threshold. And again, when you're not pushing your body to that failure threshold, you're just chasing a pump, right? Again, it's just going to be mediocre. But if you actually hit PRs and add extra reps with a given weight that you've never done before with proper execution and technique, I guarantee you your pump is going to be skin splitting. The final mechanism of hypertrophy is going to be muscle damage. And this probably has the least amount of research showing to induce hypertrophy. But from my understanding, what muscle damage can be described as in like the easiest and simplest terms is controlling the negative portion of the repetition and actually breaking down that muscle fiber. Now, that's why you see old school bodybuilders back in the day, like picking weight up that is just way too heavy for them to press off their chest on the bench, but they would just lower that weight for 10 seconds, right? And then their spotter would lift it off of them, right? Those are called negative reps. And basically what they would be trying to do is induce muscle damage because they believe that controlling that negative or eccentric, right, on that muscle damage was what is going to induce the most growth possible. Now, why you don't want to do something like that, like grab 315 pounds when you can only press 225 and just lower it down for 10 seconds is A, you can put yourself at so much risk for injury because your joints can't handle the weight, and B, it can build up a lot of systemic fatigue, okay? And it goes back to that little word we like to call fatigue, and it will open the door to potential injuries, God forbid, within your training. Now, to me, muscle damage really makes a lot of sense when it comes to hypertrophy. You know, controlling the weight is something that I feel, I personally am a huge advocate for muscle damage, controlling the negative or the eccentric portion of the movement, whatever you want to call it, because as a coach, when I get clients or someone comes to me, right, the number one thing that I see wrong with my clients' gym performance is going to be their lack of controlling the negative. Back in the day, the negative was always controlled. If you look at Mike Menzer, you look at all those guys, they always controlled the negative. And today you see people bobbing up and down, like lifting weights with an extremely fast tempo. And I totally believe that muscle damage or that controlling of a slow negative or eccentric has a huge impact the way the muscle grows. From my personal experience, when you build up controlling your reps for a 3-second negative or eccentric, say on like a dumbbell bench press or any movement for that matter, that's going to open the door to a whole new realm of strength, okay? Because your muscles are going to burn week 1, they're going to burn week 2, and then eventually around week 3 or 4, you're going to be able to handle a load. You're going to be able to control that negative or eccentric or lowering of the movement for a long amount of time, and you're going to be able to do more reps, and you're going to be able to do more weight. So you're going to be able to hit that mechanical tension that we talked about before. And guys, that brings me home to my whole point of, like, in my opinion, all 3 mechanisms of hypertrophy are 100% essential when it comes to a training program. You need to be hitting mechanical tension, right? You need to be achieving mechanical tension and striving to hit progressive overload, getting stronger, or adding reps each and every week. You need to be working in that 6 to 20 rep range. Some work will be done in the 6 rep range, and some work will be done in the 20 rep range. We will talk about that in our rep range module. From there, that is going to be inducing metabolic stress, by the way. And from there, you need to be controlling the negative, eccentric, or lowering of each and every movement, even though it's hard, right? Because technique and execution of each repetition within your set is everything. So in my humble opinion, all 3 of these mechanisms of hypertrophy are going to be essential when it comes to building an amazing top-tier physique. But thank you guys so much. God bless you. That pretty much sums up what's going to be the 3 types of hypertrophy and the 3 mechanisms of hypertrophy within your training. Once more, don't worry as much about the types of hypertrophy. I want you to worry about the 3 mechanisms of hypertrophy and make sure they're in your training program. And we're going to talk about how we can add them in our training program in our Putting It All Together module. So I'm very excited for that. So thank you guys so much. God bless you, and let's disrupt the industry.
Yeah.